Well, welcome to those of you who have joined us here this evening for this very insightful webinar, How to Thrive as a Family in the AI World. We're exploring tonight how to embrace the new world of technology and how to stay connected as a family, because as we know, the technology is already upon us. It seems to have been quietly being developed in the background without anyone's knowledge really of what it's all about until it sort of started to hit our wavelength and our media, I suppose, in the last 12 months or so. So with me this evening, I have Meg Price, who is a fellow coach like myself and a fellow parent, and who has a vested interest, I guess, in AI, in the technology, having developed her own coaching app, and something that she's passionate about in exploring how to support people with their mental health and wellbeing through the development of this new app and using AI technology. So I'd like you to welcome Meg along as our special guest speaker this evening. And just a little bit of background information about me. I am the founder and director of Practically Learning, and most of my work revolves around supporting the capacity of parents and teachers to work in partnership in schools. And one of the ways that I'm developing the capacity of parents is to support them in understanding the different things that are happening in education and in their world as parents, and how they can navigate the different changes that are constantly occurring, and how that impacts family and how it impacts their own mental health and wellbeing. So just to begin this evening, I'll just share my screen. So we always begin with an acknowledgement of country, and we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we all meet today. We pay our respects to their elders past and present, and further acknowledge the important role that Indigenous people have within our communities across Australia. So I'll just hand it over to you, Meg, to start the conversation about how we've actually used AI today.
Yeah, I guess for those that are on now and those that are listening to the recording, I just want you to think, and now if you're listening to the recording first thing in the morning, this might be very different than people at 7:30 p.m. But have you used AI today? And if so, what AI do you think you have used today? So for those of you here, if you'd like to put into the chat the AI you've used. So for example, I have used Siri in the car to send some texts. I was on Spotify, and I used ChatGPT. I used my own Noah Coach app. And there's probably a whole lot of things I've used that I don't even recall or know that the AI was running. Actually, I looked at social media. So I could probably get on two hands the amount of different AIs I've used today. So if you want to put it in the chat, the different things you've used, but at least have a think about, have I actually used AI today? And am I fully aware when I'm using something that AI is part of that technology?
Well, I can share that I was looking up some things online today and came across quite a few what's called chat bots, those little pop-up window things that come up and ask you if you need help. And in my, I suppose, naivety, I only realized that that's what they were recently when I was doing a lot of research into what is AI, and they have been around for a little while, but we didn't necessarily know that that was AI technology, or many people may not be aware of what the technology is behind those particular functionalities on websites, little pop-up windows.
Yeah, and there's a huge amount of AI. So, I mean, if you want to go to the next few slides, we've written down where AI is in, because I think this is where, so I'm just going to move my screen so I can see this. I think people don't realize quite how much is in AI, and we'll talk a bit later about the different types of AI, because there is different types in terms of image AI, chatbots, data AI. There's just so many different types. but it's all merging, and I'll explain this later, but just so that you know, because those people who've got kids and those at schools as principals and teachers, kids are using AI probably a lot more than you are, and in a variety of ways. So things like the virtual assistants, the Siris, Alexas, Google Assistant. I mean, they're all AI, and they're getting better and better. Social media, we know. You often hear, don't you, people say, I talked about cat videos, and the next thing it came up in my social media feed, and is my phone listening to me all the time? Well, it is always listening to you, because if you say, "Hey Siri," it knows to answer. I'm just closing my watch before it starts answering me. So anything like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and they have different types of AI within them, because things like Snapchat and some of the social media now also have those chatbot type things, or those virtual assistants within the social media, as well as all the other things. A lot of the kids are using gaming ones, and they're playing with AI characters, and there's AI characters that are in YouTube and all sorts of things that have different forms of AI. Our photos, our Google ads, there's a whole lot of stuff. Translating Grammarly, I use Grammarly quite a lot. Duolingo is a great app. So there's probably, if we gave this to list, and we had 3 pages of these, I think, if we gave these to students and asked them to do, an assignment on all the different types of AI, they could probably find us another 3 slides, I reckon.
Absolutely. So there's so many different ways that our children are already interacting with AI. I think one of the first introductions to AI for my kids particularly were those funny faces that would come up on the screen. I think it's augmented reality, it's called.
Yep.
When they would put their face into the camera, and it would create a picture over the top of them. And the other time, I think, was way back actually, when they could go searching for characters in the park, and it was a little pop-up character.
The Pokemon game. And everybody would be looking at their phone as where it was.
Yeah. So it's been around for a while, but we just didn't realize how big it was going to become, and how much of it we actually already use.
And then I think it got, to me, the big shift for me, like all this stuff's been in there, but the big shift for me was last December. And I remember sitting down with my kids and saying to them, I want you to have a look at ChatGPT and talk to it and have a chat to it. And remember where you are and what year this is and this moment is, because in the 90s, when I was at work, Google came out, search engines, and I don't really remember it. A friend of mine said she remembers because she was looking to buy a house, and some of the first websites were for real estate and looking for houses. But if you think about it, that's, that was a huge moment in time. People going, oh, nobody's going to be searching the internet, or no one's going to do this, or they were worried about change or how that would affect work. And that was a really big moment in time. And so when ChatGPT came out, and really the technology around ChatGPT and AI and where it's going, to me, really changed the game. And that's where I said, they're going, now's the time to remember, where you are, what you're doing, because this will change AI and the future of AI and how we work as we go through. So we, as a family, had a really interesting conversation about that, and used ChatGPT back then when it was brand new, in all different ways, that the kids had different ways that they wanted to interact and ask questions than I would do. And it was a really fun, interesting way to talk about it. And we'll all remember the date and time and everything about when that came out.
Yeah. And it's, I suppose, what you take for granted, and our kids have grown up with it. So for them, they're digital natives, and any new technology doesn't scare them at all. They're very curious and eager to learn how to use it.
Yeah. And they're not as worried whether they should or shouldn't be. They're not as worried about where that data's going, because they're digital natives. They're used to it. It's, and potentially they've had parents that have been posting photos of them when they were younger. So why are they suddenly worried about their data now, when their data's been used sometimes without their acknowledgement when they were 5, 6, I don't know, 2 months old even? So it's a really interesting difference in the way they see things.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the challenge for parents and for educators to protect children's privacy, which, as we know, privacy is a strange concept these days because people share so much online and all the data that's being collected is being used in AI. I heard a story recently about the potential for the data to be used for not so good strategies in future, especially with all those apps and I suppose the Apple Watch and the Garmin's and those things where you record your heart rate and what you're eating and all of the different things that are quite personal to every individual, and how that data potentially can be used if it's placed in the wrong hands in the future. And that's the challenge that we have as parents and educators, to guide children in the right direction to understand the implications.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. Did you want to share the slideshow at your end, or?
No, I'll let you do it.
Now, Andrew put in the chat box that he knows he used AI today, but he's not sure how much of it he's used in his life. But I guess you could pop in the chat box, Andrew, or jump on the screen if you feel like it, to share after seeing all the list of things that AI actually applies to. How many do you think you might have actually used?
Sure. Well, excuse me. I was typing into a couple of documents today, and they were changing, the grammar and the words, and suggesting that I not have a passive voice and all those sort of things. So there's, like I said, a variety there. Yeah, I've got a Garmin watch. You get a bit sick of it when it tells you to keep moving because you've been sitting down for a little while. And, even though you've got your steps up, if you've been sitting for more than, I don't know, an hour or so, it tells you to get up and move. So, yeah, I'm interested with your conversation that, I think technology comes before we understand the ethics and the rules about how to use it. We can get the technology going properly, but how to make sure we use it and use it well.
Yeah, certainly.
That's my little bit.
Yeah, well, it is.
Sorry, you go.
I wasn't using dating apps, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, they're very questionable, those dating apps, but I'm sure they work for some people. I guess the definition of AI, artificial intelligence, there's probably multiple definitions floating around, but it's essentially a machine's ability to perform the cognitive functions that we associate with human minds, such as perceiving, reasoning, learning, interacting with an environment, problem solving, and even exercising creativity. So in a lot of ways it has been designed based on human intelligence. However, we know that human intelligence, as humans, we do have higher intelligence. And I guess that we have a responsibility to continue, and I'm sure you as educators, to continue to develop that higher intelligence in our children and in ourselves, to be able to actually manage the implications of AI, and not to lose our human intelligence. And I suppose that's one of the moral dilemmas that we have in our future, and why we're talking about this now is so that we can actually be proactive in how we respond to this new technology. And another definition is the science of making machines that can think like humans. Similar definition: doing things that are considered smart, processing large amounts of data in ways unlike humans, in a speed, I suppose, that humans are not necessarily capable of doing. The goal for AI is to be able to do things such as recognize patterns, make decisions, and judge like humans, which is interesting in itself. So I'll hand it over to you, Meg.
Well, and judge like humans. But I often think it's interesting when you see some of the social media chats about AI and people giving it grief, and some of the chat bots, that it's not smart enough, artificial intelligence, and it's doing this and doing that. Well, it's built by humans, and it is biased, and it has only got a certain amount of information, and it's not going to be perfect, but neither are humans. Yet we want artificial intelligence to be better than us. But I'd be careful, very careful what we wish for. And probably now with that brain image is a really good time to talk about the fact that AI previously, there's lots of different forms of AI, and you've got, this, we talk about image AI and data AI, there's stuff on social medias, reading stuff, the chat GPT type things are different again. And so you've got all this different forms of AI. And what used to happen is to develop those AIs, it's almost like they were all in different countries speaking different languages. So you'd improve your image AI, say, but that didn't change the chat AI. Whereas now, thanks to this sort of whole new world of AI, they all speak the same language. So it's like we've given the whole world, all humans speak Spanish and can speak to each other. And what that means is when we work on improving image AI, suddenly we're improving data AI and things that we haven't done in the past. And so this to me is a really important thing, because we have this exponential growth in AI that we've never seen before, because they now all include this large language model, and we're going towards a really sort of generative AI world. And I think that's what, we all need to get our heads around, that this is different than it was 5 years ago. It's going to be different in 5 years' time. And if we've got kids that we're educating or parenting, we'll never perhaps get up to speed with it, but we need to at least understand that this is a really fast moving world. Yeah. And just trying to be curious about it. I don't think any of us are going to be experts in it. Even the experts are not going to be experts in it. But let's continue to be curious, because some of this AI, when you look at that medical diagnosis, the learning, some of this stuff is really good stuff, and it's good for the world and it's good for humanity. But yeah, if you've got bad humans, it could be bad for humanity too. So it depends who's at the table educating and building the AI. And I want to educate those kids coming through to be the good humanity that's going to build good AI.
Yeah, I think that I've recently seen some really good examples of AI being used effectively for good. I saw a speaker, Dr. Jordan Ewan, at a conference last year, and he's designing a lot of different technology using AI to support people with disabilities to be able to do things they'd never be able to do otherwise, using eye recognition and movement and touch and all sorts of different ways to harness the technology to be able to give them experiences that they wouldn't otherwise have, which is quite amazing. And with students now doing STEM learning, and an exhibition I've been to several times called STEM Mad in the Catholic education sector in Melbourne. They have a STEM Mad, which is Make a Difference exhibition every year, and they're teaching the students to design using technology and other ways to, for good, to be able to support people and humanity and the environment. So as long as we sort of move towards that way of teaching our children to be able to see the potential of new inventions and new innovations, and I think that that's a shift in mindset as well for parents to understand that with this new technology, there are new ways to move into different professions and new ways to work, which we'll touch on a bit in a moment. But that diagram really does show a whole range of different areas that's being used already. And the more that we learn about the human brain, the more effective I think that we'll be able to utilize the technology as humans, because ultimately we're the ones controlling it.
Mm. You want me to whip through these facts and figures? I think this is just to set the scene, just because some people don't realise quite how quickly this is going. This presentation will be outdated in about 5 minutes because these figures will change again. But if you think about the revenue from AI software market worldwide is expected to reach 126 billion by 2025. I'd say that's going to be more than that. 37% of organisations have implemented AI in some form. The percentage of enterprises employing AI grew 270% over the past 4 years. So, I mean, this is our kids are going into this world. I just think what a wonderful opportunity to let them be curious about this. 2025, 95% of our customer interactions will be powered by AI, whether we like that or not.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sometimes you just want to speak to a human instead of a chatbot. But anyway, global AI software market is expected to grow 54% year on year. It's just a huge amount. And it is absolutely a race going on. And we need to realize it's a race, and there's a lot of people in it that have got the money, that are in AI, that are developing it, and therefore it's more important that we have a voice in it. So I put this up here because this is part of my research. So as well as being a tech startup in AI coaching for wellbeing, I'm currently doing a PhD. And what I do want to find out with this PhD, I'm only 18 months, a couple of years in, is when people are talking to a conversational AI, like a Siri or all these chatbots that are around there, when they're talking to them and asking for emotional support, what's happening to their well-being, their human connections, their ability to flourish? I just want to know, this is what's happening when what's happening is happening. And people said to me, yeah, but how many people are actually talking to an AI for asking for emotional support? What are you talking about? These statistics from a couple of different reports, and one of them is 21. So it just makes me think these figures could be more. Just blew me away that nearly 3 in 4 people would rather talk to an AI than approach HR about stress and mental health. Almost 3 in 5 people would rather talk to an AI than their manager or colleague about stress and mental health. This next one upset me. More than 2 in 3 people would rather talk to an AI than their GP about stress and mental health. And more than 1 in 2 people would be more likely to stay with a company that uses AI to support career growth. So I think these are really, really interesting stats. One is because I'm focusing on well-being. Clearly, we know that mental health, there's still a stigma around stress and mental health. So this is a specific area people are talking to AI about. Part of the reasons were that people said, well, I'd rather talk to an AI because it's available 24/7. And sometimes I'm stressed at 3 a.m. and there's nobody to talk to. Other people said, well, it doesn't judge me. I don't want to talk to a human. I don't want to go and talk to my parents about this. I don't want to talk to my partner about this. I almost want to just talk through my inside voice to something to get some clarity and get some strategies. So, I mean, that opens up a whole other can of worms as to what's happening to us as humans if people feel they need to go somewhere that is less judgmental. So, how do we stay in that space, especially as parents, and not get judgmental when our kids are coming to talk to us? Because if we don't, they've got a phone, they've got an AI that they can go and talk to. And do you want your kids and your students to be parented by AI or you? Or what will most likely happen is going to be a combination of the two. So I just find those stats really interesting things to watch, and know that, I mean, this was an adult population, but I know there's chatbots on Snapchat, and there's a couple of other ones that kids are using that have got an AI chat. So if I can't chat to my friend on Snapchat because nobody's available, I can just chat to the AI. And when that first came out, that went horribly wrong, and we'll share a video link that you can go and see how wrong that went with kids asking advice from that. But it's out there and it's happening. So there's no point putting our head in the sand. We need to be curious and talk to our kids and students about it.
Yeah, it's concerning that we don't know exactly who they're interacting with online anyway. And as parents, the challenge has always been, not being able to look over their shoulder constantly to see what they're looking at on their phones, but having an awareness and listening into what they're listening to, and having conversations, and really just keeping those conversations open and without judgment, as you said, so that kids do know that they can come to you as a parent and open up, or even a sibling, or a trusted person that they can share their concerns with. But I mean, the more this becomes available, I suppose, the more we probably need to jump on there ourselves as parents to see what they're actually, what advice they're getting and where it's coming from, in case they are interacting with it, so that you at least know what it is. There's not that fear of the unknown and that sort of sense of panic or worry that they're getting the wrong advice. And I mean, as a parent, you normally go to the doctors with your child and be in the room with them so you can hear what the doctor's saying. But if there's a lot of self-diagnosing going on and interacting with counselling services, then that makes it really challenging. But I can see why a lot of people are doing it, because of that sense of shame, and not wanting to admit that they need help, or that they're suffering. So I guess there's a lot of challenges that we need to explore further.
And for some kids too, it's just fun. If you put up that next slide, which shows a small section of, these are chatbots like a chat GPT. So these are all things that you can chat to. And there's heaps of them, including mine. There's heaps of things that you can talk to, but things like character AI, this is really popular with I'm going to say 14 to 26-year-olds. And character AI has a lot of the gaming people. Now, I'm not a big gamer, so bear with me on this, but a lot of the gaming people have then built characters. So they're not actually talking. They've prompted a character, so that if you're a gamer and you're a 15-year-old gamer, you can go into character AI and have a chat with this famous gamer and get some advice. And it's not necessarily emotional support about stress, anxiety. It could be absolutely anything, but it starts you having these conversations with these AIs, and it's quite interesting and it's quite fun, and it could all be just about gaming, but there is a whole lot of these. I mean, I've got one there. There's text with Jesus. You can to start texting with Jesus, and if you get it, talk to Jesus. If you get it in the Australian app, it's different. I got somebody to do this in Holland because I wanted to see the difference, because Jesus calls me mate when I get it in Australia. I thought, oh, that's interesting. But it calls you something different in the different countries that you're in. So, and then you'll see there's a soft toy there. There are soft toys built that also have this ability to soothe children, and potentially then have these little robots that are chatting to kids. So we're starting at a pretty young age introducing them to these AIs that can have now a fairly good conversation. I've got the one up there that looks like a human woman is Westpac Wendy, and she's been around for quite a long time through Westpac, and you can go on and chat to Wendy, and you'll notice her face changes when you talk to her because she mirrors your face, and she's there to help younger people with CVs, and she'll give you some advice to improve your resume, and so it's a service that the bank offers, but it's AI, and I've had her on that slide for about 4 years now, I think. So she might have been even around longer than that. So we will get more and more of these now. And it's hard to keep finding them, but we know that Khan Academy have put in an AI tutor, and there's lots of different AI tutors. If I go into character AI and say I need help with maths, I can find a maths tutor even on character AI. I can actually speak to Einstein as well if that's what I need. So, kids are clever, they're having fun, they're going in here and they're doing exactly this. So to my point is, there's so much out there that we don't even know. The thought of banning this in schools worries me, because if you ban anything, then the kids more want to go and have a look, rather than let's be curious and say, look, some of this stuff is is not good. It's not good advice. And some of it's pretty good. And, even talking to a human or a teacher might not give you the perfect answer. So why not just teach them to be curious about what they're talking to, not who they're talking to, but what they're talking to. It's a bit like the old stranger danger when we were little, or it probably still is around. It's AI danger. Some are bad and some are good. You have to be really curious about them.
And it's also about how do we teach kids to be discerning in understanding what's real and what's not. So if you saw that lady talking on the screen, you would possibly think it's real. And any information that they're getting on any of these apps, they need to be aware of, what's fact and what's fiction. And obviously that's very difficult to discern these days because of the nature of AI being able to create new characters, voices, replicate people's voices, and the dangers of actually, not really knowing what's real and what's not. So I think that being curious is essential so that you can have those conversations with your kids and also in schools, so that there is an awareness of young people to really be mindful. Some things may not be real and some things may be fact, but how do we actually find out the facts? So human intelligence still needs to be, obviously, a major factor in being able to be discerning and using that human intelligence and that human intuition, knowing what's doesn't feel right. And I think it comes back to that, doesn't it? With AI doesn't have any feelings, but as people, as humans, we have feelings, and we get a feel for something, and our brains usually kick in when something's not right. And we can do something about it. So really teaching kids about how the brain works and how we need to listen to the messages that are coming through our brains to tell us when something is dangerous and when we need to really think carefully about how we respond to different things that we're being exposed to.
And it's hard, isn't it? Because you think about that voice AI, I can record your voice for 8 seconds and then I can use your voice to say anything. Now, if I knew that when I was a kid, I would have recorded my mother and got out of school many a day by just having a voice recording saying, Meg won't be at school today. However, I wouldn't do that now. But you think about it, you're going to get a message on your phone from what sounds like your child saying whatever. How do I know? Because it sounds like them. It's their voice. And we can now record a person's voice for, as I say, about 8 seconds, and then I can get you say anything. And I can even do I could do a little FaceTime message or whatever people put on. It looks like your kid, sounds like your kid. Yeah, if I really look at it, maybe the voice and the mouth is not quite working properly. But they could have said, I don't have much Wi-Fi or something. I don't know. I think that we're going to have to, we have to be very careful and have that understanding with our families to say, I won't ever believe a message that's coming from you in this format, because we've all agreed to set that boundary that we won't do that.
Because, well, it's like scammers, how they send you a text from your child or from, I think I got one, hi, Mum, I need some money deposited into my account. And just being aware that there's so many scammers out there. And I called my daughter straight away to find out if it was her. And she said, no, it wasn't me. So, just the awareness is so important, and having those critical conversations.
And setting them up in the front to say that, look, these scammers are going to get very clever and they're going to do this sort of thing. So we need to be upfront that we're not going to do that. You're never going to send me this type of message. I'm not going to send that to you. So that we know that you get it. You go, okay, scam. Like, I think it's, not a bad thing to have those conversations in families and schools, and schools saying to parents, you won't get this type of message from us as a school, et cetera, because they'll come out. Won't be long.
Yeah, and I think, it comes back to, we as adults have a responsibility to explore the benefits and maximise those for our children and their future and their education. But also we can't always resist the change, but we do need to minimize the risk factors and really, being open and honest. And I think I can see a whole can of worms being opened up with bullying as well, where some people could be misrepresented and all those sorts of things, which is frightening and quite sad that people will go to those efforts to try and hurt other people. And that's another conversation that obviously needs to be happening in schools and with parents and the children around this behavior won't be tolerated, and and really having some rules around it and policies around AI and bullying, because that it will happen, no doubt. So I've just popped this up on the screen because I suppose as a coach myself, and Meg as a coach, is really about how humans respond to change and to things that we don't necessarily understand, or that we may be fearful of, that we may be resisting learning about. And really it's about understanding the three ways that the brain responds to something that's happening to us at any given moment. And the first automatic response is impulsive, and we can respond impulsively to our kids sometimes if they do something wrong, or if they tell us something we don't agree with. We can impulsively respond in a way that may put them off coming to us to ask questions or to share information. And as parents too, we can be instinctive in our response to protect our kids, and that's the brain's response to us to protect us. And we innately have that in us as parents to be able to try and protect our children as much as possible from danger. But then it's really about exploring our intuitive responses to new technology and to changes that are happening in our world and in our children's world. And how can we be intuitive in how we think about how to respond and how to really approach different situations as they arise in a way that is inclusive conversations and curiosity, as we've talked about already, being curious about and asking questions rather than thinking you need to have all the answers, and really opening up the conversation in a coaching format with your children to be able to understand the situation at hand, what questions they have, and how you can explore any solutions together. And I think that's always an approach I've used as a parent. Obviously, sometimes I've reacted impulsively and instinctively, but I try and always respond in an intuitive way that is inclusive of their voice and their understanding of the technology they're using, and how to actually have really exploratory conversations around how to come to a solution. I'm not sure if you want to elaborate on that, Meg.
No. I think the big word to me, as I've said a lot, is the curiosity, because if my brain automatically, it just wants to keep me alive, so it's going to be impulsive, it's going to go straight there, then the only way for me to sort of bring my brain back to me is to get curious, or to do something that causes that front of the brain to turn back on. So it's what strategy do I have when I know I'm flipping out to turn it back on?
Yes, and that's really just coming back to the moment and grounding yourself, being aware of the thoughts that are swirling around in your head, and and the feelings that are coming up for you before taking an action, really stopping and thinking, okay, how am I going to respond to this in a way that's not going to be aggressive, angry, frustrated, challenged, and in a way that is open and open to discussion. So now we're looking at, just a moment, how to thrive as a family. And now I've gone too far ahead, sorry. And really, how is AI already impacting family life, and how it can potentially impact family life in the future? So I'll hand it over to you, Meg, to explore these areas.
I think on the the right side, I'm going to come back to saying there's a mix of this, but I think it is impacting our family life just by us having 3 slides on all the different AI that people are using and kids are using. I think we know we're using it. We've got smart devices, we've got smart houses, we communicate differently. I mean, just think of technology, not just AI, but, we have family text chats. My 90-year-old mother texts me regularly, uses FaceTime, uses all sorts of technology in the way of communication. We all know where we all are because we've got, Find My Friends on my phone to find our devices and find each other. And my kids are all older and we still all have it on there. And it's sometimes used for good and sometimes used for, I say bad, because they say, I see you in the supermarket, can you buy this? But that's probably not bad in comparison to other things. So we're using that. We use entertainment. We're using streaming service and gaming that suggests what we should go to next. AI tools are used certainly in education. And again, my kids are a bit older, with the youngest one in year 12, but they're using AI tools. I did quite a bit of research around this at one stage and found that kids and teenagers and even uni students are actually not using it so much to plagiarize or write their essays and stuff. They're using it to learn more about something. And often, and it's a bit like, I think, why Khan Academy decided to use the AI tutor. And I've listened to a podcast with him talking about that. And it was to say that it goes back to that no judgment thing, to be able to ask a question of the AI tutor that perhaps you didn't want to sound like a stupid question to somebody, but then you could really explore the concept without seeming silly to anyone. And they found that the kids that were using AI and uni students using AI were doing it just for that, just for learning purposes and stuff. And then they were often checking and rechecking things on internet and books and things, more so than all this concern was, they're going to get it to write their essays and plagiarize. It actually wasn't happening as much as people thought. They were using it for good. I think in families too, that the importance of setting those boundaries, as I said, having the rules of, you're not going to send this type of message to me, I'm not going to send this type of message. We know that we've always had sort of, we have rules in our family, always have, about phones at the dinner table, phones at certain types of night, what you can and can't do it within the family. And hopefully that as they grew up as teenagers, they also had those same sorts of rules about how you use it. And that goes with talking to AI too. So I think on that other side, I'm a mix of this. I think there's we go concerns to future outlook, but I imagine most of us have some concerns about privacy and data security with AI devices, and I think we should. And I think anything that we're using that has AI, and check that it's using AI, check that it adheres to the European standard of data security and privacy. I'd always been looking for that stuff rather than just using it. Now I know a lot of kids just go and use the stuff, but get curious, ask your kids, what are you using, and maybe check in that it's got some pretty good policies around it. The future outlook, I think a lot of people potentially are excited about the possibilities, the innovations of careers and stuff, but I'm really excited about it because I work in the tech startup phase. I study in this area, but I also have a lot of concerns about it. So I think that most people are probably like me. There's so many good things that can come out of this, but actually there's concerns around it too, and a whole lot of stuff I don't know. And I keep thinking this changes all the time. How do I keep up with it? And I think that's where we just keep opening the dialogue and things like this webinar and other things, that we just keep learning more and more about it. And we'll never be right up to speed. And also that last one is saying, we've got all this great technology and it's wonderful, but how do we also get kids to go outside and ride a bike? And technology can help us do it. I mean, some of the technology helps you build healthy habits and help kids go out and, mentioned before a Garmin or an Apple Watch, so you want to get your activity up and stuff. So if technology helps us do those traditional activity, then I don't really have a problem with that. But like everything, life's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is trying to find that balance as a family, and like you say, set those boundaries and have those discussions as a family to set the rules, so that kids are actually involved in setting their own rules as well, so they take responsibility for their own behaviours, and being mindful of everyone else in the family as well. But yeah, there's certainly pros and cons to everything. And yeah, I think if you can have a look at different apps and things that they are using, I must admit I'm guilty of just downloading apps without really reading privacy and those sorts of things. But the alarm bells go off or the red flags go up when they start asking for certain information. So you know not to give them too much information, or just delete the app. But yeah, it's about teaching our kids that as well, and being mindful that, you know, if these apps and tools are actually asking for a lot of personal information, that's a red flag. And it's about identifying those red flags and what are my boundaries as a person, how much am I willing to share, and what are the consequences of sharing too much, and how is that going to impact me as a person in the future as well. And I know schools are doing so much work in safety online and helping kids understand, you know, how to stay safe online. But this is a whole other level, I think, in terms of recognising the dangers, but also how do I use AI in a way that is good for me as a person, and really putting it back onto our children as individuals and getting them to think about it, instead of telling them how it should be, because we know that, you know, they push back on being told what to do or what apps they can and can't use. But how about we have a discussion about why that app isn't really appropriate for you at this time? So it's really about, goes back to having that responsibility as a parent and as an adult, that you need to guide your kids in the right way around these new technologies. So another area I guess we need to touch on too is future careers, because, and as educators, Andrew, we have an educator on here this evening, there's a responsibility to really teach kids about how AI is going to impact their future careers. And as parents, we need to shift our mindset on how we view careers, because they are potentially moving and already have been moving for quite a while from fixed to flexible, where you may not necessarily have the same career your whole life now. You might have 5, 6, 7 jobs, different jobs. You might have several at the same time. And you might be earning passive income online through digital asset creation. And of course, AI allows this to happen more easily. There's many people already making lots of money online using digital assets and creating them at a rapid pace. So we know that a lot of people have shifted their mindset in where they work as well. They're less inclined to go into an office and want to work from home or remotely. And so the statistic on the left, I suppose, highlights that, yes, there are going to be a lot of jobs that will be, I suppose, overtaken by AI in many ways, but it'll also generate more jobs than we have now, according to the World Economic Forum in October 2020, which has probably changed now, because the stat I found for 2023 was 300 million full-time jobs. So it's really, like Meg said, rapidly changing the face of, or how we actually live, how we work. I did find this statistic from the Financial Review that Australia faces a lower risk of losing jobs to automation because many of our, I guess, population have greater levels of education and less reliance on you know, trades and those sorts of things. So yeah, so there's a few different areas that are needing a shift in mindset, especially for parents when guiding our children towards a career, because we really don't know exactly what that looks like at this time, but it's really being open and being flexible to how people are actually working and earning money now, because it's changed so much in the last 10 years.
And I won't spend too. I might just go back to that one just to say that, because I talked about it earlier. No, sorry, the next one down, the little column. Yeah, I talked about that earlier. I don't want to spend too much time because I do want to go on to the next one. But there's two websites there I would highly recommend everybody look at it, especially if you've seen the social dilemma about social media. Then they've also done these YouTube videos on the AI dilemma and beyond the AI dilemma. And they talk here about this golem. And I talked earlier about how these generative large language multimodal models means that when one area of AI learns something new, all areas of AI learn. So there's this exponential growth. And they talk there in the AI dilemma about this race. And it's really, really interesting. And it does make you, it is to me a little bit frightening. And they talk, I have a great story. They talk about the golem in the Jewish folklore, this creature that was created to represent man and be, smarter than man from dust. And the rabbi could create this really, really smart artificial intelligence. But then the problem got that the artificial intelligence was so good that how could they return it back to dust before it runs amok and wrecks humanity? So there's this whole sort of look about AI is very similar to this old Jewish folklore story. So it's well worth watching those. It will scare some, but I sit there going back to, then I don't want to put my head in the sand. I want to be part of this conversation that helps make sure we make the right choices about AI for our future generations. But I've shared this with my family, my kids, and just tell them to, in schools, get your high school kids to be watching these things. So go and watch those links would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I can pop those in the chat box as well.
Okay. So
how do we thrive as a family?
Yeah, so just lastly, I guess in the last couple of minutes, through some of the study, this is what we've been looking at in terms of the skills that we need, perhaps as parents, as educators, and our kids. And it builds on some of the work that's been done in Flourishing by Seligman and Thriving, but looking at these things with an AI lens. So thriving in an AI tech world is relationship building and conflict resolution. We still want to build relationships, but it's positive connections with humans and technology. So this is not one or the other. We want to build up the EI skills around empathy, because again, if we keep asking AI for that emotional support that we talked about earlier, are we actually building human empathy, or are we making sure that we spend more time when we're having human connections building that and helping and supporting others in complex worlds? So curiosity, we talked a lot about today, and I think just exploring AI technologies, asking kids, your kids know more about this than we do. So ask them, have questions with them, try to understand what they see as the value, what the chats, when they're chatting to an AI, what sort of chats they're having, especially if they're on something like character AI, what's the type of conversations? Why is it good? What's bad about it? Try to learn as much from each other, and hopefully they ask you, what types of AI do you use, or why do you use them? The digital literacy, this is why I'm not a fan of banning AI and technology in schools. I think, and you looked at those stats that Rachel put up of jobs, I think we should be understanding how AI works. I think we should be teaching kids far more about online and AI, and we should be teaching them to engage with technology in a really mindful way. I'm not sure we do that well enough yet. We know that if we're going to thrive as a family, we've still got to look after physical health. So I think that comes down to this, and it's a fight in all families of having boundaries between how long you're allowed on technology, how much you got to get outside, eating, stuff like that. And I know that it's always going to be a fight, but having those rules in the family is still going to be, boundaries are going to be really, really important. We know from those stats that you showed earlier, Rachel, the people that are going to have careers are going to have a higher emotional intelligence because it's potentially something that they don't have in AI. Potentially, I say, because I've seen some AIs who are very emotionally intelligent and show some empathy. So that's a concern. We need to do that better as humans. We need to be really flexible. This is a really complex, rapidly changing world. And if we're anxious and we want control and things like that, I think that we're going to suffer a lot more. And we're already seeing rising mental health rates and a lot of people with anxiety and stress. So we're going to have to come up with some solutions and really work at teaching our kids that art of being flexible and adaptable to all of these changes. Probably comes into that critical thinking, problem solving, evaluating the ethics of AI. As I say, go and find out, why do they want this information? Have I checked these policies? Question the AI responses. We should all be doing that. They're not right. But then if I speak to a human, if you're listening to me, I'm not necessarily right either. So we should be always questioning that. And then the mindfulness comes in again, recognizing mitigating AI's influence on personal thoughts and behaviors. I don't necessarily want the AI to lead people down a certain path, and that's exactly what it's doing. AI is constantly trying to take your attention and bring your attention to buying this or taking that. So understand that that's what it's doing to you. So what am I doing to recognize that and mitigate against that and stay present and reflecting on those biases that are influencing AI? Because don't let anyone tell you that AI is not biased and all of this sort of stuff, because of course it is. It's built by humans. So there's a lot in that slide, but I think it's something that we could, you could certainly form into lesson plans and all sorts of things to help at school and things that parents could be talking about and doing too, role modeling.
Yeah, it's there's so many different ways that you can be exploring how to thrive as a family. I think one of the biggest concerns, and I saw this several years ago when my children were getting into online shopping, and that was the use of the algorithms to target young people to purchase products, and that's only going to increase the more sophisticated the technology and the use of algorithms and data becomes. So it's really it's a huge area to explore as well with your kids about buying things online and not falling for the traps of those advertising gurus. And I was in advertising in a past life, and I know that I know the tricks of the trade that are used to appeal to individuals, and it's got even more sophisticated over time. So yeah, lots to think about as parents, and really lots to explore as educators as well. And it's really critical that parents and educators work together to guide our children towards these changes. So I guess our final question for this evening is for our audience is, how will you embrace the change, ensuring balanced AI use and fostering a growth mindset towards future opportunities? So I'll just stop there and ask our attendees if you'd like to respond to what you've seen this evening and how you think you might embrace these changes with AI in the future. Just pop your hand up on the screen. Ian? You'll have to unmute.
Still on mute.
Still on mute. No, still on mute. You might have to put your question in the chat box. Jody or Andrew, did you want to respond?
Can't unmute him.
Not sure if I can unmute from here.
I don't think I can either. No, Andrew's got a quick question up.
Yep, Andrew.
I don't know whether I've got a question, but I think the questions are, you can't get definitive answers. And it's, for me, it's probably a change in education where you're not providing answers anymore. The asking the question and the right question is probably just as important these days. And I don't think we're ever going to get a time when will have all the answers. It probably maybe partly because it will continue to evolve and continue to change. So I think it's that mindset, the change of mindset, and being in education. The other one that we've looked at is this whole idea is how do we assess using AI, because it's no longer, it's not, kids can crash out a piece of work which we would have marked previously and as their own original works, but now it's assessing their ability to be creative, ability to be informed, ability to analyze and to look at it critically and not just present bits and pieces that they've been able to get together from different sources. So yeah, like I said, it is a change of thinking, I think, for us. I don't know whether that's any help.
Yeah, it's definitely an unfolding process, and I don't think anyone has all the answers, definitely not. And I suppose it is about having that mindset that, yeah, we are all learning about this together. And yeah, assessment is certainly a challenging space for that reason. And yeah, students really need to be aware of how that's actually going to impact them, if they're not presenting their own work. And yeah, I suppose it's really about building awareness amongst students that, yes, there is this technology, and just like we use Google search and those sorts of things, but it's not really going to help them if they're using it for the wrong reasons. But yeah, it's a very challenging space. I can see that a lot of schools are grappling with where do we actually start, because there's so many areas to explore. So yeah, thank you for your comment and for attending this evening. It'd be interesting to do this session for educators to unpack a few other areas that are of, I guess, big challenges at the moment.
I can add again. Yeah, I think that's a whole change in education, because we previously taught our kids to come into a world that we know and provide for them, but we're now having to educate them to going into a world that's unknown, but to be flexible and to be able to meet those challenges, rather than, if you go back to long societies where they were just teaching them the ways of staying alive and so forth, and how to capture food and what was poisonous and not, that way. But yeah, we are going at the slides, which always show that the jobs that we have now are not the jobs that the kids are going into. They'll be jobs that they don't even know. So creating those flexible, agile youngsters, prepared for the future rather than for the past.
I think there's real value too and my studies have been in transdisciplinary or transconceptual studies, and the value in that collaborative learning that kids can teach us, we can teach them, that they just get so many different disciplines in the room to learn from it. And then the kids also learn that's a way of learning and a way of being in the world when they go out of school. So I think there's an opportunity for us to be more of that transcontextual or transdisciplinary learning around this topic, which brings them in as the sort of co-teachers and co-students. Everybody's sort of in it together, which is kind of where they're going to be in the world.
Yeah, and they're living in a global environment where AI actually is opening up opportunities to work with people from all over the globe, but also fostering an entrepreneurial mindset in young people to be flexible and to know that there is uncertainty, and how to manage that, with their mental health and well-being, to manage those uncertainties that arise. And I think that that's one thing that's probably missing in our education and in as parents. What we teach our kids is, how to actually cope when things don't go to plan, and building those resilience skills and those relational skills are really critical for parents to still focus on. And how to have relationships, and how to build those relationships within business, because everything about business is about relationships, and we know everything about education is about relationships. But sort of shifting the focus to more around those interrelational skills and resilience skills, to be able to manage and be flexible, be open to change, be open to new ways of doing things, and experimenting and being curious. We've talked a lot about that tonight, and how can we actually make things work using this technology that is for good, but is not going to be damaging to humanity and to our environment.
Absolutely.
Ian, did you still want to have a comment, or?
Can't get it off mute. Have to do it by it.
All
if
right.
I had a translator, I could do it.
Did you want to say a few words before we finish up, Meg?
No, that's I know we're sort of well over time, but so thank you, and thank those that get the webinar, and certainly anybody that's educator or parent that wants to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be doing a lot more research around AI. So if you're interested in this topic, I'd love to just connect there. Perhaps would be great.
Yeah.
And I'll keep putting out any interesting research as we get it as well. So that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm really interested to read your research, and keep following what you're doing, and see how your app goes as well.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to come and have a chat and get people excited and curious and a little bit concerned about AI.
No, well, thanks for coming along. It's been a really interesting conversation, and hopefully we can continue to open up conversations with parents and with educators, so that our kids are supported, and we know that they're in safe hands when the adults who surround them are supporting and guiding them in the right way. So thank you everyone for attending, and look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. I'll just share the screen again, because I've got a webinar coming up in a couple of next Monday, with Dr. Lynn O'Grady. We're going to be talking about pretty much a follow-on to tonight's session, how to have hope in an uncertain world, and how we can support our children to have hope, and really to embrace this new world and the world that they're going into, to create the world that they want to see. So Dr. Lynn O'Grady is a community psychologist, and she works a lot, very closely with young people and parents. So that will be a good discussion also next week. I have a Facebook.
Sorry, Rachel, can you reshare that, because the screen's not coming up properly?
Oh, isn't it? Okay.
Might be just me, but I couldn't see it.
Oops.
Yep. Sorry, that's there.
Yep, that's it there. So I'll send out a link to join that webinar for next week. And I've got a Facebook group for parents that parents can join, and I'm posting different support materials in there constantly. So Meg, if you want to share some information in there, I welcome you to do that, and share with other parents. And I also have a book for parents called Creating Connections that is available at Amber Press. So that explores the role of parents as they guide their children through their education, and gives parents good advice on how to actually cope when things do start changing for them and for their children. So there's lots of information in there to help guide parents through that journey. And on my website, I have a number of other resources and webinars and courses that are available. So feel free to go and have a browse, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you on future webinars and getting your feedback on tonight's session as well. I'll send out an email to each of you to get some feedback. So thank you very much for attending, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
No problem. See you later.
Thanks very much. See you.
Bye, Andrew. Oh, well, that was disappointing. We didn't have many people.
No, it's hard to know.
That's all right.
Hard to know if you get them on the recording. We
Yeah.
had one recently where we got a few people on the webinar, but somebody said the percentages are like 10% on the actual webinar, and then people watch the recording or don't watch the recording or watch 5 minutes of the recording.
I had about 22 on last week's, and we had 62 register, which wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just depends on the topic, I think, and people's availability.
That's right. There's a lot going, and you'll have a little struggle, I guess, as things starts to get a lot going in. You must sort of by the end of November, December, have people just saying I've got too many things on at the end of school. So.
Yeah, I'm not going to have any more parent webinars this year, I don't think, after next week. It'll just be some sessions with principals, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we'll have a principal on board then, and
that's good.
Get into their school. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's such a minefield for schools, and they need all the help they can get, I think. I think it's a bit of a headache for them. Another headache.
With the students in a way. I mean, it's harder with the primary school students. But then again, you can manage their stuff on it. But with the seniors kids, I'd be going, let's talk to them. Let's get them involved. They should make the rules. Help make them.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Otherwise, they're just going to rebel anyway. So
do what they want.
As we do. As they do.
You can't check if it's done by AA or not. So, you've got to get with that program.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to
All
go.
right. Thanks again.
Thank you. We'll speak soon.
Yep. We'll stay in touch. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.